This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
And we are back, guys. It's been about a month, but Top Rope Nation episode 124, the 2019 Pro Wrestling Award Show on the air. My name's Ryan Drosty, comicbook.com, here with you tonight. It's a Monday evening, joined by both sidekicks tonight, Justin Joint, Kyle Ross. Justin, how has your holiday season been going?
I can't complain. I've been really enjoying my wife's new weighted blanket, so it's sleeping nice.
Two great minds think alike. Also got my wife a weighted blanket. She hasn't really used it much yet, though, but I like it. I actually like it more than I thought I would. So, anything else new in the world of Justin Joint over the last... I think our last show was right before Survivor Series. It's been a while.
Not really. You know, I guess I'm just ready to, dig our heels in and discuss why Rian Johnson is the best writer-director to ever touch a Star Wars movie.
I still haven't seen it. No spoilers. No spoilers.
All right.
Kyle Ross, what's going on in Cleveland, Ohio tonight?
Oh, what's not going on?
You got Monday Night Raw on in the background?
I do not, actually. I do have an eye on the Orange Bowl, but no, not Monday Night Raw. I'm saving Monday Night Raw for a later date.
Probably a good decision. I watched a little bit of it, but not a whole lot.
I caught a clip, I'm not afraid to spoil anything. I don't give a damn. The Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens brawl with Seth Rollins and AOP that at least looked intriguing. Mm-hmm. Something to sink your teeth into, perhaps.
Yes. So you have a pretty good holiday?
I did, actually. I'm kind of glad it was over. It was very exhausting. It lasted several days.
Well, this is the busiest time of the year for you at work, so.
It sure is. So, yes, if any of my family members are listening, I apologize if I was rude over the last several days. I didn't mean to be.
Guys, if you are joining us tonight in the chat room, we are streaming live on YouTube. We're trying an entirely different production. Like I said, we took about a month off. We were looking to revamp things a little bit, add a little something fresh to the broadcast. I think we've done that, as you can see on the YouTube page right now. There is no video of us, but there's a static image on the screen, but it's actually not so static, guys. If you let us know you're in the chat room, your chats will pop up on the screen in the video stream. Also, if you subscribe to us here on YouTube, the minute you hit that subscribe button, there will be an alert that flashes on the screen as well with a pretty sweet animation. So I'll call you out. If you subscribe, you'll get a call out live here on the broadcast. Also, if you look down at the description of the video, you'll see a link to Streamlabs, which is a website a lot of you might be familiar with. A lot of gamers use it, a lot of podcasters. It's a way for, if you enjoy what we're doing tonight, you want to tip us $1 or something like that, tell us a good job, support the show. Also, it'll trigger a different animation on the screen. You can also type in a custom message that will pop up there on the video feed. Makes it, a little more exciting. We haven't done anything like this before, so hopefully you guys will like it. But we thought with an award show like this, where we look back at the year of 2019, it'd be fun to get you guys involved, get you in the chat room, give us your opinions on all the categories we're going to go through. And we also threw out some tweets earlier tonight on the Twitter page, got a ton of engagement on that. Most of the categories, last I looked, about 200 votes, a little bit more in some of them. So we've got a lot of you involved. We're going to call out the results for all of our categories as we go through them. But since it is the holiday season, before we get to the awards, guys, I had kind of a fun topic tonight. I don't think I even told you guys we were going to talk about this, but a lot of times we like to go back, get a little nostalgic on Top Rope Nation. And one of the questions I had for you is, do you have a Christmas memory that stands out for you, like a special Christmas gift you got that was pro wrestling related at some point in your upbringing, that probably like the most exciting Christmas wrestling related gift you ever got? I'm going to throw it to Kyle first because I assume he has a lot of them. So Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, you did mention this, so I put some thought into it. I think I mentioned sometime on the previous 140-something episodes of this telecast that I started watching wrestling late 86, November 86, and obviously Christmas was not soon thereafter, and I remember I got like a bunch of the original LJN figures that year. And that was pretty cool. Got the ring, which was eventually stepped on years later by my dad, but that's okay. Then it was the year later that I found out I would be going to my first ever pro wrestling event, a house show that took place at the now defunct Richfield Coliseum.
Oh, yeah. Nice. You know, speaking of LJN figures, Kyle, not to promote another podcast, but you're talking off air about Ryder and Hawkins. Did you know they have a 2-hour broadcast on their YouTube channel looking at the entire history of LJN figures?
I did not know that.
Yeah, with Conrad Thompson. You can check that out.
I
was killing time before the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, I watched that Toys That Made Us show. I thought that was okay on Netflix. It talked about kind of wrestling and its history with figures. Yeah,
it was a pretty good one. I liked it. I heard about them making that like a year ago, and I was super pumped for it. And watching it, like, I can see where it would be a good intro for most people to like wrestling figures. I was hoping for like more of a deep dive. It was pretty just, a pretty light overview of all the toy lines, but I figure it's not really made for the hardcores, so.
No, it wasn't. I think my big takeaway was a real marriage of two seedy industries, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, hey, by the way, shout out in the chat room. Gabe is listening tonight. Longtime supporter of the show, patron of the show. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation.
Thanks, Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe's a great supporter of the show. Another great way you can support our show, get bonus content. That content does not show up here on YouTube. The only way you can hear it is over on Patreon. Those are the hardest of the hardcores of the Top Rope Nation supporters. They mean a whole lot to us. We do a lot of good bonus content for them. You get a free gift in the mail. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. Justin Joint, a Christmas memory for you.
Actually, pretty similar to Kyle's. I remember, I'm going to guess 89 or 90. But we used to, at my grandma's, all of us cousins, we would be lined up and trotted out to the living room where our parents had each set up our little Santa presents, that were already unwrapped and just out there in the open for us to look at. And I walked out to that blue ring with a bunch of, I don't know, I'm going to say at least half a dozen of the LJN figures
Nice.
Surrounding it. Yeah, so it was pretty awesome.
Very awesome. I guess for me, this was like a video gift. I think this was it must have been, I think it was Christmas 97. So it was around the time that the Coliseum video line was ending. I remember them promoting it in the WWF magazine, but Coliseum Video was still a thing, so I thought it was kind of odd. But WWF Video put out the box set of, was it the first 12 WrestleManias? 12 or 13 WrestleManias? I think it was the first 12.
It was the first 13.
Those are the first 13, yeah. So this would have been Christmas 97 probably. Yeah. It had like all the original artwork on it, but it wasn't the Coliseum videos. It was like, this had to be one of the very first WWF home video releases. And I was pumped to get that. I remember that entire Christmas break home from school, just watching them one by one. I had seen most of them, but there was a couple of them that never showed up at my local Blockbuster. I think it was WrestleMania 6. I had never seen the entire WrestleMania 6. I think I had seen the Warrior Hogan match at some point somehow, but I'd never seen the whole show. That was one that my closest Blockbuster had never got. So I was pretty pumped about it. I think that's probably that one, or one year, Justin might remember this since we're from the same town, one of the malls here in town, one of the stores had a Stone Cold Steve Austin life-size stand-up out in front of it. It was in the middle of the mall. And my grandma bought that for me. She like went to the store, saw it, asked the owner. He said it's not for sale, and she said, "Well, how much? I'll pay." My son is a huge wrestling fan. You know, how much do you want for it? And she got him to sell it, and I was shocked when my grandma pulled that out at her house. So, yeah, that one really stands out for me. So, shout out to my grandma. Shout out to Tim Jensen also in the chat room here live. Tim Jensen says Rise of Skywalker was okay. I see a lot of critiques of it on Twitter. Some other people that liked it a lot. I'm curious, but maybe I'll see in the next couple of days. We shall see.
By the way, so I got that same box set in '97. And how cheap were those tapes made, man?
They were definitely a lot lighter than the Coliseum videos, like in weight. Yeah.
I had a TV VCR combo that over time killed like 3 different one of those tapes from rewinding.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean those were the cheapest made tapes. And remember the WrestleMania 11 version that came with it? It was like, because I think there was like some sort of pay-per-view problem originally with the show, and the version we got was like hosted by Roddy Piper.
I don't actually remember that. I'd have to pull out the tape and see.
Yeah. The version that was the version you got with the box set, and like Piper was like really at his worst with the jokes. He was like at this podium or something like that. It was very odd.
Yeah, that one wasn't one I watched too often, so I must have just blocked that out of my memory. But if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, follow us on Twitter at Top Rope Nation. I know I still have it. I'll dig it out of storage tonight and post a picture up on the Twitter page. But
I have it right not too far behind me in the closet, actually, still with three destroyed tapes.
It shows how far we've come. Now, you guys, you younger fans, you don't know how it was, man. I hate to sound like an old guy, but man, to get 13 WrestleManias in one piece like that was amazing back then.
And it was pretty well priced. Like, dare I say, it was underpriced. Not something you often say.
It was,
with the World Wrestling Federation.
Videos were like $40 or something like that.
Yeah, and I remember this was like, I don't know, it was like $50 or $60.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cheap.
Yeah, it was a good deal. It was a good deal. Yeah. They put out one a couple years after that had like the scratch WWF Attitude logo on it. But this is the one. This one had, if I remember right, it had like the WrestleMania 12 kind of style logo on it, like the Hollywood looking one. So
yes, it did.
So, anyways. Got that out of the way. Just thought that would be a good discussion before we jumped into the news and the main topic tonight. But of course, before we get to that, got to get the plugs out of the way. So again, if you're a regular listener of Top Rope Nation, we thank you. Sorry about the hiatus. We're back here strong tonight. If you are listening to the podcast feed, and this will still go out to the podcast feeds, even though we are producing it live on YouTube now moving forward, leave us a review. Leave us that 5-star rating over at Apple Podcasts. You can do the same at Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, pretty much wherever podcasts are found. You can also find the archive. You can find links to our merchandise where you can support the show, links to the Patreon page over at topropenation.com. You can find all the info on the history of the show, a little bit short bios on all 3 of us if you want to check that out. And again, if you're watching us live here on YouTube tonight, hit that subscribe button. We're looking to jump the subscriptions tonight as we produce this show live and do our 2019 Pro Wrestling Awards. Before we get to that, though, guys, usually we do a little in the news segment. Now, we would have a ton to cover if we tried to hit up every news story that's happened since we last did a show. So we thought we'd kind of condense this tonight into basically story of the year. Like, what was the biggest news story of the year in pro wrestling? I'm pretty sure we're all going to agree on this one. But Kyle, what was your thought?
Maybe I should go last.
Okay. Justin, what do you think was the biggest story of the year?
Because if you think we're all going to say the same thing, I kind of wanted to expound on it and take it in a direction where I will poop in everyone's soup.
All right. What do you think, Justin?
The biggest story of the year in wrestling. Boy, I know there's something obvious that you guys have thought of that I'm not thinking of. I mean, the first thing I thought of isn't really new news, but just the continued, what's the word? Dirtiness of the Saudi Arabia adventures of WWE, but I know that's not it. I guess maybe the return of CM Punk, I guess.
Oh, that's a big one. I'm thinking broader. I'm just thinking the launch of AEW would have to be, for me, the biggest news story of the year. Maybe you weren't thinking of that in terms of a news story, but
I mean, just the opening of a little indie company doesn't do much for me. I'm kidding.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, I have to go with AEW. It's changed the business in a way that the business needed. I do think AEW TV in the last few weeks has been less than stellar. I think NXT has pretty much dominated the Wednesday Night Wars in terms of the product they're presenting, the matches they're presenting. It's not to say AEW's bad or anything. I just feel like the excitement has died down a little bit. I'm looking forward to the build to AEW Revolution starting this week and to see what they do there, see what they do with the resetting of the rankings and everything. In our chat room, Tim Jensen says Seth Rollins versus Twitter is his biggest story of the year. Kyle, what were you going to say? Go ahead and let my soup have it here.
Okay, so it was, by the way, January 1st of this year that AEW was announced. It was a very big story. And, I think back a couple months. We were all gearing up for this fall season. Not only was this second national company debuting on TNT, but you had WWE with unprecedented television deals. One of them taking them to network TV 2 hours live on Fox every Friday night. And Fox, I cannot say this enough, did such a tremendous job promoting WWE's arrival. Mm-hmm. And there was all this talk from Meltzer, from everybody, that are we on the verge of the next boom period in wrestling? Well, no, we're not.
No.
It is definitely, and I going into the show, I was thinking to myself, what would I have said if there was a Top Rope Nation episode on December 30th of 1995? 3 months into the original Monday Night Wars. And I don't know. It was a long time ago. But, man, it's a lot more bust than boom, quite frankly, as I sit here on December 30th, 2019. And there's a real sobering reality in wrestling right now that I don't think a lot of people want to admit. People within the wrestling bubble do not have a goddamn clue how to grow their audience at all and how to reach people who are potentially interested in wrestling but are not hardcore fans. Maybe they're lapsed fans. Maybe they're just potentially new fans that discovered it through Fox's promotion or TNT's promotion of AEW. They have zero, and I want to stress the word zero, clue how to appeal to those people, and the numbers tell the story. People want to watch wrestling. They really do. But it was a matter not of months, but of weeks before we were just back to these baseline numbers.
That's true. I mean, the SmackDown numbers just fell off a cliff. You look at that, the first week. Now, I know it wasn't your ordinary show. It was the debut. They had some legends back for the show and everything. But, man, the show is just, like I said, it's really fallen since that week. So it shows, like you said, Kyle, there is that curiosity factor. And they're just not doing a good job drawing them back in for the long haul at all.
The shows are not easy to consume for people who are not hardcore fans. And that's a problem. It is the biggest problem with TV wrestling in 2019. That the way the shows are written, either they expect you to know what the hell's going on, or that you're going to do the work on your own to figure it out. Like you're going to go online and look stuff up. Yeah. Why should people do that? People don't... If you're going to grow this audience, you have to understand that the people you grow with are people who don't want to do that. They just want to watch wrestling for 2 to 3 hours a week. And when the show's over, maybe they won't think about it the rest of the week. If the show's good, maybe they're like, oh, you know what? I really had a fun time watching wrestling tonight. But they're not going to go online and do all this research. And look, the wrestling bubble is larger than it's ever been. But the casual audience of wrestling has never been smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that SmackDown thing that you just referenced, Ryan, it was the most galling of all. How quickly that dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just back to what they were doing on USA. And again, I cannot repeat the tremendous level of promotion Fox did for them. Unprecedented promotion. And the WWE just wasted it. No major angles.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you want the numbers and how SmackDown is done, they've pretty much been hovering around like 2.3 million, 2.4 million viewers each and every week lately. That debut episode back on October 4th did 3.88 million. So they basically lost like 1.5 million viewers since then. And that's 1.5 million out of 3.8 million. So it's remarkable. Yeah, they haven't.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying, yeah, like you said, they haven't been able to hook those people. It is the hardest of the hardcores. I think we've kind of hit a baseline where it's not going to drop too much more. We've kind of talked about that on the show in the past. And yeah, it's true. The more general audience, I've never seen like less interest among the general public in wrestling. I mean, you would think, based on all the money they're making on the TV deals and everything, that this is it's a product that's hot, but I mean, it's only hot among the hardcores. And I think you made a great point, Kyle, when you said that people want to consume 2 to 3 hours of wrestling a week. That's a key point because it's so saturated. Now you add in AEW to the mix, you add in NXT to the mix. There's no way anyone, especially if you have a family or kids, can possibly consume that much wrestling. Like I cover wrestling for comicbook.com, and it's virtually impossible. Even though I'm getting paid to do it, it's virtually impossible for me to watch all that content, nor do I want to. Yeah.
Yeah. And, let's not let AEW off the hook, Ryan, because you talked about this a couple moments ago, but their TV is not where it needs to be either. For a promotion that came out and fancied itself as, quote, paradigm shifting, there's been no paradigm shifted whatsoever. I think the show is way too close to how WWE puts together a television show. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe they remember their storylines better than WWE does. I mean, I don't think there's been a promotion in the history of this. Well, I shouldn't say WCW was by far the worst at remembering storylines near the end. But, WCW or WWE this year was terrible at how they would just start storylines and just drop them willy-nilly. So maybe AEW is better in that regard. But again, the issue is stars. I talked about, it kind of mirrors what's going on with the fan base. The wrestling bubble's never been larger, but the casual audience has never been smaller. There's probably never been a time in wrestling where there were more talented performers in the industry. But there's never also been a time where there's so few stars. I'm going to push back a little bit on a question I know you've got for us. One of our categories is rising star in the industry. Well, spoiler alert, I'm not voting because that question presupposes there are any stars in wrestling right now. Or that one of these companies is capable of making a new one.
I was wondering where you're going with that take. Justin, you got anything to add to this conversation? How do you feel about the amount of wrestling that's out there today?
I mean, for me personally, it's too much, and it made me think of a comment. I can't remember if it was Vince or Triple H made a while ago, where they're talking about how their competition isn't other wrestling shows; it's everything else that people are going to watch, and that's 100% true. And I mean, we've got these streaming wars popping up, and there is so much good television out there. Netflix is pumping out Oscar-worthy movies. They've had 3 of them just in the past month. And so that kind of stuff has taken my eyeballs off quite a bit when, you add that in with the oversaturation and just the fact that, especially Raw and SmackDown have just been bad for a long time with no clear vision or clear storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great point by Justin, because I didn't want to kind of let WWE off the hook with the oversaturation issue. Because make no mistake about it, there's an oversaturation issue in wrestling. But if the shows were good, that would be less of an issue. Because nobody doesn't like too much of a good. I mean, there is an expression that can be too much of a good thing, but let's not sugarcoat this one iota, folks. Creatively, the WWE is about as poor as it's been ever this year. I think post WrestleMania has been just nothing short of atrocious as far as Raw and SmackDown go.
I got some thoughts from the chat room here I wanted to get to. Gabe said, you guys got to get Kyle a hot take sounder. He said, that being said, I agree. I haven't actually watched a full episode of wrestling in months. I just catch pay-per-views and takeovers, get the recaps from podcasts such as ours. Thank you, Gabe. And Tim says, same for him. Those guys also chimed in on the wrestling gifts. I didn't get to them in time. I wanted to call those out too. Gabe said he got WrestleMania 2000 as a kid and the N64. That was one of his favorite gifts. And I think this is your buddy Chad, Kyle, said he rewound one of Kyle's WrestleMania box set tapes and it came off the spool. He had to pay like $5 to get it back on.
All right, I'm not. Look, I know you're coming in town, Chad, recently. I'm not giving you your $5. Okay, I don't give it. Thank you. That was very nice that you did that. You're not getting your $5. What kind of cheap move is of all the cheap, low down moves I have ever heard by someone contributing to a podcast? Trying to get sympathy for $5 has to be the absolute nadir. And that's what that was.
By the way, if you guys are participating in the chat room like a few of you are, I had a setting wrong. Like I said, this is the first time we've been doing this interactive chat where it pops up in the video stream. Apparently, I had it set for the words to go off after 15 seconds. So just change that to keep them on there permanently until they scroll through the top. So if you add in a chat now, they will actually stay on the screen and not disappear. But thanks for everyone for participating. Hopefully you will. Tim says, Kyle, you need to buy that guy a beer at least. So Chad, maybe we'll get a beer from
you freaking kidding. Let me tell you, if any of you knew this guy's one of the, I mean, I'll tell you what, he's the last of the big spenders, this guy.
That's true. I haven't seen him pop up on our Patreon page, Chad. Yeah. Patreon.com/TopRopeNation.
I'll tell you, well, what did Girl Munson used to call Bobby Heenan deep pockets when they would do the WrestleManias at Trump Plaza?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Last of the big spenders. But, yeah, just to get back to this debate as far as television in wrestling, and it's not even just the television. Like, somebody needs to be brought in with new ideas. Because I believe television needs to be just reimagined in wrestling. The way they're doing it, you know, Meltzer had a bit of a discussion that I think something that hurts. He felt that it hurts AEW actually, that they don't have like the monthly pay-per-views. So sometimes they can get lost because there's nothing really to build to. And he suggested maybe once a month, you know, kind of having, he called them destination shows for Dynamite, where you kind of just built to a, you know, one of the TV shows per month was maybe a little bigger than the others. But the irony is WWE has these monthly pay-per-views they build to, and those aren't very good either.
Yeah.
Like WWE is just a promotion where, you know, some stuff happens, and a couple weeks later, it largely didn't matter.
Although, Kyle, you went to one of those monthly pay-per-views, didn't receive a whole lot of promotion. Fastlane ended up being one of the best pay-per-views of the year, so you never know where you're going to get with those shows.
Yeah. What does that say?
What's that say, though? Yeah.
Okay, that Fastlane 2019. You're right. We had that discussion, the three of us, a few weeks ago. What was the best main roster? I know Triple H doesn't like those words, main roster, but we'll just use them for argument's sake here. What was the best main roster WWE pay-per-view of the year? And we were like thinking Fastlane. What does that say about 2019's pay-per-view offerings?
Absolutely. Yep. All right, so should we transition into the topic of the week, the main topic for all you joining us live and on demand here on YouTube? By the way, if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, see the animation that'll pop up in the video feed. Would love for you to see that. And here we go. The best of 2019. Let's see, what order should we do this? I think we're going to start off with promotion of the year. Now, I got to say, with promotion of the year, got a little pushback on the poll I had out there on Twitter because, yes, I did include WWE and NXT separately. Yes, guys, I am aware that NXT is owned by WWE. But I separated them because they are, other than when they were doing the invasions and stuff, they do feel like independent products. They are vastly different, you know, if you watch NXT television and Raw and SmackDown. So we did have those as separate entities here on the poll. And if I take a look at how those of you that follow us on Twitter at Top Rope Nation voted, let's take a look.
I love
here.
that people thought you might not know WWE owns NXT.
I got more than one person that responded saying that, by the way. I didn't even respond.
Beauties. What an absolute bunch of freaking beauties. God bless y'all out there.
God bless
Ryan
the
actually
internet.
Doesn't know, by the way.
News to me.
He told me the other day. He actually secretly texted me last week. He's like, dude, WWE should buy NXT. It'd be great.
Can you imagine the talent influx? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, last check, 264 votes on this question. 264 votes. We had 18% say WWE, 28% say AEW, 8% say New Japan Pro Wrestling, 44% NXT. So NXT won this one going away. Would you guys, if you're looking at those four, which I thought were, probably the top four, would you guys agree? Would you agree with that, Justin?
Yes, I would. I mean, for me, wrestling Nirvana for I don't know, the past 3 years or so have been NXT takeovers, and nothing has topped that. And it's going to be kind of hard for AEW, just for me and how I consume this stuff, to surpass them when I'm not really in the mood to pay $50 for their specials.
Yeah, that is a tough point. I know they're only once a quarter, but the price tag does, in an era where you can get all the content you want for $10, it is pretty tough. And Ring of Honor was doing the same thing, although actually a little bit cheaper before them, and we'd often complain on this podcast about their pricing too. What do you think, Kyle, on promotion of the year?
This is really hard. Should not be, if we're splitting WWE up into main roster NXT, obviously it should not be the main roster. You would want to go AEW, but man, it feels like they're having the same issue that WWE has with their TV, where it's just, the more of it they have, the colder the promotion gets. And with both NXT and New Japan, I think they're the most consistent, but I think they also both have the lowest ceilings possible. And it also feels like with both New Japan and NXT, I liked them less this year than in past years.
Yes, I actually looked back at the Observer Awards, and every single year since 2012, New Japan has won Promotion of the Year. I think this will be the first year that it might not, although they've had a ton of really good matches, as we're going to talk about later. So who knows? But it definitely doesn't have the buzz here in North America that it did when, like the Elite guys were over there.
Yeah, or just, I don't know. You do get the sense that the promotion peaked. And again, it goes back to something I said. I just think that while it's a very consistent product, and it does the best at producing high-end matches, you always get the feeling that we talk about ceilings of these promotions, growing your audience. The irony, again, not to repeat myself, but I will, with NXT New Japan is I feel that their ceilings are the lowest. Like, I think the potential for AEW and obviously Raw and SmackDown is far greater than what NXT could do. New Japan right now, obviously, with Access, giving them the boot, they've got some issues there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't feel like this is an easy answer because I don't want to give, I just feel like, all right, well, New Japan's winning every year, whatever, but and NXT has a lot of issues. A lot of issues that are pretty similar to Raw and SmackDown. Bloated roster. I don't think the storytelling has been as great as it used to be. I don't know. If I was a man, I would have just picked some random independent.
MLW.
MLW is good.
It is, but I don't know if I would go that either. NWA Power again, that's like a low ceiling thing. I guess I'll just go with New Japan because it doesn't have some of the glaring issues that the other ones do. So I'm going to go New Japan.
Okay. All right. So carrying it through several years in a row, if the Observer votes the way that, and the readers of the Observer vote the way Kyle does. But
well, those cowards are always afraid to admit that the WWE had a great promotion in the late '80s, and they would just keep going Jim Crockett promotions. They were all on the take back then too.
I'll never understand how in the Observer Awards back then they had Gorilla Monsoon as the worst announcer of the year. Maybe it's just a nostalgia thing with me being a kid at the time, but I feel like that's insane.
Meltzer hated Gorilla Monsoon. If you read some, I was just listening to the guys on Between the Sheets. They did a recap, and they were like kind of aghast. Like, Jesus, Meltzer's killing. It was Survivor Series '91. Like Meltzer was just killing Gorilla. To the point I tried to rewatch the show and then I fell asleep and forgot to do it. But I don't know. I always enjoyed Gorilla, particularly whether he was with Heenan or Ventura.
On that note, Chad just chimed in. Number one issue wrong with AEW is the announcing. I would tend to agree. I think Tony Schiavone needs a much louder voice on that broadcast. I think, Kyle, you've made your thoughts known on this podcast.
That. And I think we know who maybe needs to, turn it down a few.
Let's see. Gabe said AEW hasn't grabbed me yet. There's been awesome stuff, but they haven't put together a solid product top to bottom. They got to get that women's division sorted out, and they need to build more stars. I agree. They've only had a couple stories that have really got me invested. I am a fan of AEW. It's exciting because it's new, but long term, their storytelling really needs to pick up a lot. And they need to stop focusing on the Dark Order. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yes, outside of Cody's stuff, the storytelling is not awesome.
It's surprising Meltzer, how poorly they've used Kenny Omega, for example.
Yes, that's something Meltzer has really been banging his fist over the last couple weeks. And then, there's little stuff too. There was a match, if you go back and check our archives, remember when Private Party beat Young Bucks? I loved that match.
Oh, yeah. Match was awesome. It opened the show.
Yeah. And then it's okay, I remember having a discussion actually with Chad, who's listening right now, okay, that he's like, well, Private Party's got to win the tournament right now if they're going to beat the Bucks. Because, Meltzer, I think, was questioning that decision. He had listened to Wrestling Observer Radio, and he was kind of, representing Meltzer's voice in a little debate we were having. And I was like, well, yeah, I assume if they're going to put Private Party over the Bucks, Private Party's going to win the tournament. Well, they didn't. And I think AEW's tag division suffers from the exact same issues WWE's does with 50-50.
Yeah.
And kind of just try to serve all the masters. And rather than put over one team, they're trying to not hurt any team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that booking. It shows up in their records too. When the guys come out to the ring, you notice the 50-50 effect right there, which they are resetting from this week.
I think they should just do away with it. Because, if you notice, these guys come off records, and no one has a good record, ever. Yeah. Yeah. If you're a new viewer and you're like, oh, here's this guy who's 1-5, or this guy who's 3-3, who are these freaking jabronis?
Yeah,
1-5.
Tim notes in the live chat here. He says building stars takes time. They've only been on TV for 3 months. That's true. That is true. They haven't built a lot of compelling stories in those 3 months, though.
Sounds like Tony Khan's burner account to me. No, in all seriousness, I think, Ryan, you kind of just touched on this. With AEW, it's kind of all over the map. I feel their show lacks kind of a singular cohesive focus. And if you're somebody who, kind of has your finger on the pulse of what's going on behind the scenes in that company, that makes sense because you have, again, all the EVPs kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel they really kind of need to let one person book the promotion rather than, have Moxley do his own angles, Cody do his own angles, Bucks do their own angles, Kenny do his own angles. I think they need to bring in a booker.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if that becomes a more glaring issue as we hit 2020.
Yeah. Chad noted that he meant NXT announcing is really bad, which is a whole different story.
Well, yes, that
is accurate.
That is, yes. I know who's getting my vote for worst announcer of the year. Oh, we can't say that. We can't say it. I'm sorry.
All right. So if we're looking at this promotion of the year, though, I got to go NXT as a separate. It's a separate brand, as Tim noted, from WWE, and I think of it as a separate entity. It's owned by the same group, yes, but it is kind of its own animal. So let's move on to Rising Star. So there's a lot of different people you could pick for the best Rising Star of 2019. This doesn't necessarily mean that these people are new to wrestling, that they're rookies, because most of these people are not, that we're going to discuss. It just means that like they've really started to make a name for themselves here in 2019. All right, so our poll, last I looked, was incredibly close. It's got 206 votes. We've got Keith Lee on top with 35% of the vote, 35.4, and then Rhea Ripley is at 33.5, so 0.9% behind out of 206 votes. We got MJF at 21.8%, and then Darby Allin at 9%. So for me, I love Keith Lee. You know, I've known Keith Lee was a big-time worker, a big-time dude, obviously, a guy that's going to be a big star in wrestling. He's really come on in about the last month and a half in NXT on their television
That Survivor Series did wonders for him.
Oh, yeah. But I got to say, for me, though, it's no contest. It has to be Rhea Ripley. I really don't even think it's close. Justin?
I agree. She's kind of like, for me, the women's version of Velveteen Dream as far as age and seemingly natural talent goes. I would really be okay with all four of these. I think if you want to talk about going from obscurity to stardom, I think Darby Allin is certainly up there. And the same could almost be made for MJF, who is going to be a star. I'm kind of terrified to say that right now with Kyle's rant earlier. He's going to be a good wrestler. But yeah, I'd go Rhea Ripley. She feels like, especially considering how much smaller, the women's division is, she just even has more of a chance going forward of not getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Kyle?
So Rhea Ripley undoubtedly is the first, I'll call it, success story of NXT in the USA era. They did a really good job building up to her title win over Shayna Baszler. Really, really good job. I'll give her, just kind of breaking this down among the four. Again, I kind of reject the idea of anyone becoming a star within WWE. And just to illustrate that, take a look at Keith Lee. Keith Lee, I thought, had a hot hand, and it didn't take long for him just to kind of cool off. I thought they made a wrong decision by him not winning that three-way and going on to challenge Adam Cole.
I agree. In fact, the night of that three-way, I went out with a buddy of mine. The night of that three-way, I know how that sounds.
Hopefully your wife's not listening this time anymore after those practice sessions on the new software. Hopefully,
this really is a new era for Top Rope Nation. I went out with a buddy of mine who's a new listener of the show, Joe, and we were talking about this out at the bar that night. And I think it was the night they announced the match, actually. And he said, "Who do you think's going to win?" And I said, it seems like Balor is the obvious choice, but man, I really think they should go with Keith Lee, just because you got to capitalize on that momentum. So yeah, I would agree, Kyle.
Yeah, so because of that, I would put Ripley above Keith Lee because she's on a proper trajectory still. Whether what a star means again in 2019, 2020, I don't know. But again, I think it's absolutely correct to call her the first true success of NXT on the USC era. MJF, everything about him screams great main event heel. I think, he's really young. He needs to make sure he does not, develop in kind of a one-trick pony. Hopefully as time goes on, he gets a little more versatile. He's not a great worker by any means in the ring. Hopefully he does that. But I think in terms of ceilings among the four that we're talking about, MJF's would be the highest for me.
I don't know, because I don't know if I can see MJF as the face of AEW, but I can definitely see like Ripley as the face of the women's division, like in the Becky Lynch role on the main roster.
No, MJF is, because he's a natural heel, you don't build your promotion around him, but I can see him being the top heel in a promotion.
Do you think he'll be a top babyface at some point, or do you think everyone's always going to hate him?
Here's the thing. If he's that great of a babyface, or great of a heel, what do all the great heels eventually do? They turn babyface because the crowd, kind of respects them.
And then the story is, can they do the babyface thing? You look at someone like The Rock, who was so awesome as a heel, and then he pivoted to babyface, and he was great as a babyface too. Do you think MJF can do it? That'll be interesting.
You can't really even forecast that. I do when I see him come out. He, again, I talk about this industry being bereft of stars. He's someone who does carry himself as a star and does come across when I watch as someone who's important and someone I want to watch regularly and look forward to having that person be on the television and look forward to what they're doing next.
Yeah, agreed. All right, moving on. Here we go. Best theme music. Now, this is something I talk with a few people about here and there. I am a big theme music geek, so I wanted to throw this out there. Now, there is a ton of options you could go with here. And I do think WWE's main roster theme music is kind of taking a nosedive. Bring back Jim Johnston, man. Got to bring him back.
To bring back anybody, you got to sack this CFO. Just like that.
Well, CFO's gone, though. CFO's gone, I believe. So I think they've kind of gone downhill since they've been gone. But no, I do think there's a lot of good music out there. AEW has a couple really good bangers, but when I threw it out to Twitter, you can only have like 4 options. So I had a lot of people respond with, other options that they would have gone with, and I agreed with them. I told them, if I had 5 or 6 options, they for sure would have been on there. But out of the ones that I threw out there, and this one got a lot of votes. As of last check, 236 votes. And it's pretty close, but running in first place is Bray Wyatt's The Fiend theme song, and the new one, 34% of the vote. Closely followed by Tommaso Ciampa with 27%. Then we've got Chris Jericho at 24%, and Cody at 13%. Any thoughts, guys? Justin?
I agree that it's The Fiend, even though it's kind of more of a remix than something new. There are some AEW ones that I know are slipping my mind that I enjoy. Like LAX has a pretty good one, but and I can't even think of Ciampa's right now. I'll have to go and listen to it.
I'm kind of shocked at that high. I think that's kind of generic, to be honest with you. Darby Allin's is one in AEW that I actually like.
Ciampa's is actually really good. I think I could play it in the background here. WWE might apply for like a copyright block if I do. You guys wouldn't be able to hear it, but I can play it on my end. Maybe I'll add it to the podcast version. But
I don't know. I hear it. I never really think it's like that awesome.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I think it's good, but yeah, that came in at second place. Some of the others thrown out there in the comments. Someone said Matt Riddle's. I think his theme sucks. I'm going to be honest with you.
I do not like his theme at all.
I think it's awful.
I think that theme is really bad. I think it's, it's kind of like the Dude Where's My Car of stoner themes, in that it's like written. It's like it's what someone who thinks what a stoner would like, but it's obviously that person has like never like even come close to a bong in their life.
Yes.
How fucking shitty was Dude Where's My Car? What a horrible movie. I was offended by that film.
Yeah, who else do we have? Okay, so Kyle Ryan.
I've also been stoned looking for my car, and it's not funny at all, by the way. So
Kyle Ryan chimed in, big time supporter of the show. He said there's only 2 theme songs that I've been able to work out to. One's The Miz, the other, and his official vote, is much better when you listen to the full version. It's actually a song and not just a few lyrics thrown together and repeated on the way to the ring, and that's Baron Corbin's.
Sung by Baron Corbin, by the way.
Is it?
Yes.
What?
Yep. The multi-talented Baron Corbin.
Jeez, he really is the king.
Yeah, I agree.
Imagine thinking Jay White was better than Baron Corbin.
There we go. I love Just Enjoy It with all my goddamn heart and soul.
We had Derek Chappelle, friend of the show, been on here a few times. He said Undisputed Era, which I agree. I would have had Undisputed Era on there if I had more than 4 choices for sure.
That hits all the late '90s notes. Like it very much reminds me of the NWO theme.
Mm-hmm. And then we had Aleister Black, and I do like Aleister
That's a
Black
good one.
a lot too. Yeah, that would be one. Yeah. I think if I had 2 more options, I would have put Undisputed Eras and Aleister Blacks on there. Notice the mostly a lack of main roster themes there.
Well, I mean, we all talked about the Fiend, and I'll say the one
Fiend is the
thing.
best though. I do agree. I think the Fiend is the best one. That would be my vote.
Yeah, I mean, and it says something too about the guy staying over, because Lord knows when the bell rings, my interest in the Fiend sort of wanes. Yeah. And one other comment, you mentioned Derek chiming in. I'll tell you whose theme song is not the best, and that's Jameis Winston's theme song. Okay.
I'm just gonna not even say anything at this point because I don't have a leg to stand on. But my quarterback situation for my favorite team it's a little better, but not much better. And then
they frickin' switched right to that red zone channel yesterday. Jameis throwing a pick 6 to walk off the game. By God, that's Jameis Winston's music.
In the chat room, a couple votes for the Fiend as well. Aleister Black gets a shout out. Undisputed Era. All those are great choices. I agree. I think my vote though is the Fiend. What did you guys say for your vote for theme of the year?
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize we were talking about all themes. I thought it was just newer ones, but I'd definitely go Aleister Black.
Okay.
And Sami Zayn too.
Okay, Kyle.
Wow. I mean, does it get any better than Judas by Fozzy?
It is a great one. I think Cody's is really good too. I was surprised Cody's only got like 9% of the vote. I think his is pretty dang good. Okay, this is where it's going to start getting a little bit difficult. We got 4 more awards. We got the men's, the women's wrestler of the year. Those are going to be at the end. We got show of the year and match of the year. So let's start off with show of the year. So let me look up on the Twitter account and what I put out there as options. So I know Wrestle Kingdom 13 was an option. And I was actually a little surprised that maybe we just don't have a lot of New Japan watchers following us on the Twitter page because not a lot of votes for Wrestle Kingdom 13.
I wasn't as high on that either.
Well, compared to these other ones, I also wouldn't have voted for it, but it did get a lot of praise. We've got 143 votes in as of right now. And in first place is NXT TakeOver New York with 37% of the vote. Second place, AEW Double or Nothing with 30% of the vote. TakeOver 25 from June with 20% of the vote. And then Wrestle Kingdom 13 with 11%. So those are the 4 I put out there on the poll. Would you guys have considered any others in your top 4? Anything you guys want to throw out there?
Well, I mean, in WWE's top 25 matches of the year, there was 2 matches from Extreme Rules, so that should probably be in there.
I mean, I think it's Money in the Bank and Fastlane for me as the 2 best main roster pay-per-views, but there wasn't a lot
Royal
of
Rumble?
competition. Royal Rumble's not. I thought those 2 were both better than Royal Rumble.
Yeah, Royal Rumble I didn't think was that good. Ryan Drosty, if I remember, was absolutely apoplectic at the end of that show.
Check out the post show in the archives. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you were even worse before we started the show. I think we had to talk you off the ledge. I think you were ready to demand WWE be shut down for good.
There's still a glass shattered against my wall over in the corner of my living room from that night. Just could not handle it. No, it was. I didn't think it was that great. It did have a couple cool moments.
The Rumbles weren't good.
No, they weren't.
And then and then Brian and AJ didn't have a really particularly great match. Brock and Finn was pretty good. I didn't think it was better than Brock Brian or Brock AJ. You know what the problem is with these shows? They're all too effing long.
And it's hard just to remember them just because there's so much product out there. Like me and Justin had this conversation over the weekend when we went out, when we were talking about match of the year. And it's there's been, honestly, in match of the year, we'll get to that in a second. There's been so many great matches. It's hard to keep them straight. But here, there's just so many pay-per-views in general. It's hard to keep them all straight. And nothing really stands out too much other than, I think, the ones that I mentioned.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Nothing stands out. It's one thing. It's like, oh my God, it's like, is it this or this? And you're like wrestling with these three shows. But if stuff doesn't jump into your mind, then it shouldn't probably be your show or match of the year. Like, to me, like, it's never like, oh wow, like you make this like deep discovery or anything like months after the fact. I mean, sure, there's examples of that, but like the great shows, the great matches, they have the buzz in the moment.
Yeah.
And for me, it's AEW's Double or Nothing.
Okay, that's what Tim said in our chat, so he's on the same page as you. Justin.
Show of the year. For me, I think it's a tie. I enjoyed season 2 of both Fleabag and Mindhunter. I thought were both superb. I'm going to go with my love, which is NXT, so TakeOver New York. I thought that was extremely entertaining start to stop.
Mm-hmm. I would also go with TakeOver New York. I think you look at that card top to bottom. Now, I did enjoy Double or Nothing quite a bit. I'll probably be talking about that one here in just a minute. But you look at the card top to bottom. You had War Raiders and Black and Ricochet opening the show. It was a 4.5-star match in the Observer. You had Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle, which was an awesome match. Another 4.5-star match. You had Walter and Pete Dunne, 4 3/4 in the Observer. Shayna against Bianca Belair, Io Shirai, and Kairi Sane. The 4-way, 3 3/4. Not as good as the first 3. But then you also had Gargano and Adam Cole. 2 out of 3 falls match. 5.5 stars in the rest of the Now, I wouldn't give it 5.5 stars. No, I would not. But you look at this card top to bottom. Man, 4 of those matches were incredibly good. I have to take a show.
So I don't know. Like, for me, I felt I was lower on every takeover than everyone else was, and that sort of like clouded my perception of all of them this year. Like this was the year, like, I kind of mentioned it with we were talking about promotional year. I just felt like I was a little bit like people were just like throwing these star ratings out. Like, give me a fucking break. 5.5 stars. Stop that.
You would agree that was the best of their series, though, right? I mean, during SummerSlam weekend with TakeOver Toronto, we ranted on our Patreon extra show about that one. Not as good.
It was absolutely the law of diminishing returns, just like Gargano Ciampa was the previous year.
Yeah.
It was the best of the 3. I mean, that was a very good show. There's no disputing. It probably was the best takeover of the year. I just, it's kind of funny because like I remembered Gargano Cole, but I remembered Walter Pete Dunne, but I didn't remember what the other matches were until I looked at it.
See, and that's kind of my problem with Double or Nothing. Is it Double or Nothing or All or
yeah, Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing. Mm-hmm. I can only really remember 3 matches, so it's kind of the same deal with you guys or with Kyle and TakeOver New York.
So it had 2 really good matches. It had Cody and Dustin, and then the Bucks and Lucha Bros. Both of those matches were incredible, I thought. Jericho and Omega was okay. I didn't think it was as good as Meltzer scored it. He gave it 4 1/4. Maybe 4, 3 3/4, somewhere in there.
I sense a theme with some of these star ratings, by the way.
He gave SCU and Strong Hearts, the 6-man tag that opened the show, 4 stars. It was a pretty good match too, as I recall. But I felt like that was a show where there was 2 matches I would go back to, whereas TakeOver New York had more than 2 that were great, I thought.
I guess
it did have a buzz, though, because it was the first show under the AEW banner.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, for me, like, best show it means more than just adding up stars.
Yeah.
It's, what, like, is there some sort of larger narrative in play because of this show? And, that show, there was so much buzz going in, and it, like, how many things live up to the hype in this day and age? Not many. And, the buzz coming out of that show, like, I was fired up after that show. Like, I wanted to talk to people about that show. I had a great time watching that show. I didn't feel like I, had one foot in the grave or that I was in a coma after watching it. That, for me, I think is what puts it over the edge.
That's a pretty good point. I might have to change my answer. Even though, like, I prefer the wrestling, just the matches, there was that special buzz around Double or Nothing.
I'm not changing my vote, but I agree.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you go back and you listen to our preview show in the archives for Double or Nothing, and we talked a lot about how they had a ton of pressure going into that show, and they definitely succeeded. And that's a tough situation to be in, and they hit it out of the park.
And like the Moxley debut.
Yeah.
As far as like star ratings, that's for the match of the year, which we're going to get to, I know.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I just want to give an honorable mention to NXT UK. Was it Cardiff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good show too.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that we'll be coming back to that one as well.
Yes.
You guys want to go to our men's and women's next and do match of the year at the end, or you want to do match of the year next?
Yeah, it seems like we've kind of like been talking about matches. I think we should do that one.
Okay. By the way, great comment from Gabe in the chat. He says, speaking of pay-per-views, are we going to get to see Southpaw's Lethal Leap Year, since we're coming up on an actual leap year? Southpaw Regional Wrestling. Great comment. All right, match of the year. There's tons of great matches. Again, NXT's been full of them this year. New Japan's had a ton of them as well. And so as we look at what I threw out there in the Twitter votes, and honestly, this one had the least amount of votes of all of the polls, which I think was maybe because people couldn't decide, because we had like over 200 votes in some of these polls. But this one here, 91 votes. And we've got Cole Gargano from TakeOver New York winning with 52%. Cody Dustin has 22%. Walter Tyler Bate from NXT Cardiff has 16.5%. And Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada from the G1 has 8.8%. All right. I'll go first here. For me, and this is how I voted in our comicbook.com match of the year voting, it's Cody Dustin. That is my match of the year. And Justin and I talked about this the other night. The reason I picked that one, although I do think maybe, like, for example, Ospreay and Okada, or Ospreay and Shingo, or Ospreay and Ibushi might be better matches between the ropes, I felt like Cody Dustin had the best emotion added in with everything. You add in the blood, you add in the storyline, the fact that they're brothers, the fact that it was Double or Nothing, the first AEW pay-per-view, the first AEW show in general. That's one of the only matches this year that I watched multiple times, and I think I watched it 3 times. And for me, that's the one that just really stuck with me all year. It had the entire total package, the entrances with Cody smashing the throne and all that. I think, for me, Cody Dustin is the match of the year. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, boy, I really want to say the same thing. Because for me, there was only 2 matches this year that gave me the feels. And it was that one, and it was Kofi Bryan from WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Which, thinking about it today, I really wanted to go with that one, because that one really got me. Because I'm becoming a huge freaking softie in my old age. Walter Bate would be my answer if it was 15 minutes shorter. I mean, just like for me, part of being a match of the year is you got to be rewatchable. And there's just I don't want to fire that matchup because I got to set aside damn near an hour. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm actually going to, because I don't have access of rewatching Cody Dustin, I only saw it the one time, I'm going to go with Kofi and Bryan from WrestleMania.
That would be my WWE main roster match of the year, no question.
Yes, for sure. And give them credit. We kind of mock WWE lists sometimes. They said that was their, I think they encompassed all WWE and NXT in their list. WWE had, I think it was, what was it, on .com, or was it on the network or something?
On the network, but they didn't have UK on there, which was kind of mind-blowing. But
yeah, but whatever. They probably forgot about it. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was the best main roster match for sure of the year. So I would not have that Cole Gargano match, like, even in my top 25.
Wow.
Like, maybe even like top 30, 35. Like, it's like, I didn't even think it was a match of the year contender. I get that a lot of people liked it, but you can check the archives. I don't know. I had a lot of problems, and like Mauro Ranallo is the absolute dirt worst person to call a match like that too. I just felt like I was watching a match put on by two people who are really good at a video game with soundtrack commentary. I get that a lot of people liked it, and maybe just because how annoyed I got by the subsequent versions of it, it taints the original. But for me, that would not be a contender for me. Cody Dustin, not going to argue with it. It's my number 2 match. Walter and Bate got referenced. That's number 3. 2 matches that were not on our poll that I'm going to bring up was Jordan Devlin, David Starr. That's number 4 from OTT's 5th anniversary show, which, by the way, you can now watch for free. We can maybe send that link out or something like that. I'll send it to you guys and you can retweet it, but that's for free. And everybody,
YouTube?
Yes, they you can watch it for free. But my pick is Will Ospreay and Shingo Takagi.
It's not a bad pick. We had a lot of talk about this on the comic book staff because I said there's like 4 Will Ospreay matches you could have on our list for voting. We had a ballot. I think that's going to be published this year with all the wrestling awards. Like the whole staff from comicbook.com voted on it, and they had the Okada one on there, so I put that Okada one on our poll, but that actually wasn't my favorite Will Ospreay match, and I'm going to have a whole lot more to say about Will Ospreay in a minute, but
yes,
that is a damn good match. I can't argue with that one at all. So, all right. Closing comments before we move on, because I think that's pretty well said. No.
There were a lot. I mean, look, there was a ton of great matches. As much as I bag on star ratings and think people have lost their minds when it comes to rating matches, Meltzer in particular. There is, I mean, the depth of great wrestling in 2019. If there is one positive you want to say about pro wrestling, it's that. Just there has never been a time where there's just more good matches.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard to come up with a list like this, or even just like a list to recommend of matches to watch from the last 10 years, because there's so many good matches. You know, we all love wrestling from the 80s and 90s, and it's a lot easier to come up with those must-watch lists, though, because just the amount of great matches, there wasn't as many. So the ones that were really great really, really stand out, and they just stick in your mind. And I think it's a lot harder now because there's just so many good matches.
There probably were not, and if you're like young, this will blow your mind away. There were probably not 4 4-star matches in 1988 WWF.
No. Yeah.
And they're probably and whatever like their best matches probably was like 4 stars.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I'm trying to think like the tag team Survivor Series match or like Savage DiBiase in a cage. Other than that, I don't know if there was a single 4-star match at the promotion the rest of the year.
But hey, there were big biceps and back acne, so we have that.
There was a lot, yeah. And you know what though?
There were stars.
There was a lot. There were stars.
Yeah.
And they had good story. They had the best story they ever told.
Yep. This one. All right, let's go into the performers of the year, and I don't think I even have this on our agenda. I forgot to put it on there, but tag team of the year. We got to throw out tag team of the year.
Oh.
On the Twitter page, this has 148 votes, and taking it home right now is the Undisputed Era with 54%. Lucha Bros following it up with 19.6%. Revival 13.5%. Young Bucks 12.2%. And I would agree with the masses. I would have to go with the Undisputed Era here. Let me throw it to Kyle first this time.
Yes. And I'll just mention one thing. I like the Roddy Strong, Kyle O'Reilly version of the team better.
I would agree, actually, with that as well. Justin?
Dark Order.
Right.
What a fucking beauty. The best worked punches of 2019 goes to...
Just bizarre that they would end that show with them. Yeah.
That's certainly one choice of words, bizarre. I would call it shitty.
I do like the fan theory that was on purpose because Dustin is going to be revealed as the leader of the Dark Order.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I could see it.
One way out of it.
Yeah. Make it more interesting, that's for sure.
One way out.
I do want to say I've talked about this with a few different people, and I've had some people say the Lucha Bros, and I can see why people would argue that, because they've had success in AAA and AEW. I can't go with the Lucha Bros, though. I think Rey Fenix is freaking awesome right now. I feel like Penta has taken a step back, and you see that when you see him wrestle singles matches. And I say that as someone who really loves Penta as well, because I'm looking at a Pro Wrestling 1 Hour Tease, their little figures they make. Well, last time I was in Chicago, I picked up a Penta one. But, yeah, I can't go with them just because they have taken a step back. They had some good matches, like we said, the Young Bucks match at Double or Nothing. But, man, Undisputed Era as a tag team has been awesome this year. And I would agree. I like the Strong O'Reilly combo the most. Bobby Fish isn't bad, though. So, but we're, pretty much all on the same page there. So let's throw it to Women's Wrestler of the Year next. And let me find the poll here. I know last I looked, yes, Becky Lynch is winning 47%. This is out of 198 votes. Rhea Ripley at 25%. Shayna Baszler at 17%. Io Shirai at 9.5%, and I did have some people comment and throw out Tessa Blanchard as well. I do think Tessa Blanchard's awesome. I just don't watch a lot of Impact. I'd have to go with Becky Lynch, just of the, not necessarily for the match quality, just the year she's had as far as being the face of the women's division. Obviously the WrestleMania moment, the Royal Rumble moment. I've got to go with Becky Lynch. Who would you say, Justin?
For me, it's a landslide. Shayna Baszler. She has the accomplishment of holding the title for the majority of the year. And unlike Becky Lynch, she's putting on great matches, almost week after week. Becky Lynch just hasn't done much for me since, match-wise, damn near since Royal Rumble against Asuka. Because the main event at WrestleMania was a bit of a fiasco. So, I'm going to go with Shayna Baszler.
Okay. Kyle?
It's Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is the closest thing they have to a well-booked champion on the main roster in a long time. The people are behind her, the office is behind her. You don't get that very often. It's her year. I get that you could say people had better in-ring years. Maybe you think Becky did not live up to what you wanted it to be at the start of the year. But no, for me, it's Becky Lynch.
Agree. And I think there's a lot of women's wrestlers that have had better years in the ring. In fact, I just looked it up. Becky's only had one match all year graded 4 stars or above in the Observer newsletter. That was the Hell in a Cell match against Sasha Banks. Exactly 4 stars. Otherwise, nothing 4 or above. Her Royal Rumble match with Asuka was 3 3/4. The Rumble itself, 3 1/4. And you have to go back to TLC 2018, so just over a year ago, and her match with Charlotte and Asuka had 4.5 stars. Then she also had that great match with Charlotte at Evolution with 4 3/4 stars. But yeah, 2019 has not been her best in-ring year, but to me it's just more symbolic. She's been in a position that I don't think any women's wrestler ever has been. So I just kind of have to go with her by default. But
overrated.
I wouldn't even call her overrated. I don't know that she's been in the situation to have the great matches. She obviously can. She's done it in the past, but yeah, it hasn't been her best in-ring year, not even close. In fact, she's taken a step back in that regard. Okay.
I just think, they haven't taken the title off of her. That's her big accomplishment for the year.
Yeah. And
what's the memorable promo or angle or story? I mean, there's just nothing there for me.
To Mania. I think it's pretty much just her first few months of the year.
I think the fact, it's as I digest what Justin just said, I think it's a good question. The fact that I don't see it as a problem that they haven't taken the title off of her. And this is someone who's actually on TV every week, I think that's an accomplishment unto itself. I mean, think about it. Brock Lesnar's is sporadically on TV, and you're dying for this guy to lose the title. Becky Lynch is on TV every week, and I have zero issue whatsoever with the fact that she's been the champion since WrestleMania. That's actually a pretty big accomplishment in 2019.
But the difference is that there are a lot of intriguing options to hold the title when you're talking about Brock Lesnar, where, Becky Lynch, there's not a whole lot there. I mean, you just put it back on Charlotte or Sasha Banks.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. There really hasn't been, in terms of her programs, the Sasha one was the one I think we all kind of maybe thought she was going to lose. But you're right. Other than that, I don't think there's been a justifiable spot for her to lose.
Hey, I've called for her to lose the title multiple times this year for this very reason, because I said she was getting stale. All you have to do is listen to our shows before SummerSlam, where I was actually calling for her to lose to Natty for just a brief period of time to heat her up, because the show was in Canada. They actually made Natty seem like a legit threat for a couple of weeks.
And dude, where's my car? What were you smoking?
No, I'll stand by it. I still don't think that would have been a bad decision, because you could have at least made Becky interesting again for a month or two. Whereas, yes, she, like Justin said, I agree. She did kind of flame out, and she didn't have anything really going for her. And it wasn't like Natty would be a long-term champion or anything, but, they could have a decent match. It was in Canada, there's some symbolism there with Natty. I definitely think Sasha Banks, too, was a time to switch it, as you alluded to.
Sasha was the only, I thought, compelling challenger she had all year. Well, that's the problem. I don't think the problem with Becky's title reign is necessarily on her. I just think they haven't had compelling challengers for her.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's different from Shayna, because Shayna has had compelling challenges.
Yes.
And I would actually say Shayna's been kind of boring this year, too. I think she's a good worker, too, and has been great in the past. But, you talk about someone just having the title and not dropping it. There's another example. I thought they should have made that move before they did as well. And if I'm looking at the people on the list, to me, Ripley, obviously, Io Shirai, I think they've both been way more interesting this year than Shayna Baszler.
It's funny, because going back to Justin's point about, who does Becky drop it to? Talking about the length of her title run. The NXT women's division actually felt deeper than the Raw or SmackDown versions. It felt like there were other options. I personally believe, if we're just, talking big picture, maybe things we would have redone differently, Shayna Baszler should have been Becky's first challenger coming off Mania, building off that Rousey feud as Rousey's friend. That's the direction I would have gone. And I think she would have been much better in that spot than Lacey Evans was, when it was someone, here's a new character who gets introduced, and the people really weren't buying it, and then she loses. Doesn't look that great in the process. I mean, Lacey Evans has improved since then, but I think that's just not a way of booking that I agree with. When you bring someone in and their first program is losing a title program. I just fundamentally disagree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Now, people are going to say, well, what would you have done with Shayna? Well, I don't know. To me, I think that would have made a lot more sense, because if you listen to the, hullabaloo that they view Lacey Evans as kind of this potential big star long term, whereas they probably, Vince probably doesn't with Shayna Baszler. Mm-hmm. I would have cashed in on Shayna at an opportune time.
Yeah. All right, before we get to men's wrestler of the year, I want to say again, in case anyone is joining us right now that wasn't here at the beginning of the show, this is an entirely new format for us here streaming on YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast version, join us next week. Subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/TopRopeNation. You can be here live with us in the chat. We'll call out your comments like we've been doing tonight with some of the people here in our chat room. And if you are here and you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and see what happens on the video feed. Check the video description if you want to leave us a tip on this show that will also have an effect on the video. Hey, maybe you want to buy Kyle Ross a beer and I can Venmo him the money tonight. Leave us a tip. The link is in the video description. See what happens there as well. All right. Men's Wrestler of the Year. Now, a lot of discussion happening in the Twitter sphere on this in recent days, at least what I'm seeing on my news feed. And to me, it's actually not that close. But let's see what our followers thought here on Twitter. All right, 157 votes. Adam Cole winning with 55% of the vote, followed by Will Ospreay with about 20%, Jon Moxley, who won the Sports Illustrated Wrestler of the Year, 14.6%, and then Cody Rhodes at 10%. So for me, it's no question Will Ospreay. Like, end of story. I don't see how you can give it to anyone but Will Ospreay. But Justin, go to you.
Tyson Fury.
Yes.
How about that false bag? How about that false bag of goods, Cain Velasquez, that Vince got sold?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, if you're just talking in ring, I mean, yeah, nobody had a better year than Will Ospreay. That's not really enough for me. And plus, I don't watch a whole lot of New Japan. I think the person who possibly did the most for their career, both in the ring and outside of it with promos, is bar none Cody. I think he leveled up in a way that nobody else did. I mean, we already knew Will Ospreay could have great matches. That is no surprise. Same with Adam Cole. I mean, he is awesome at hitting his finisher 15 times a match. Jon Moxley's one I don't really get. He hasn't done a whole lot for me. He still kind of feels like Dean Ambrose, maybe PG-13 version. So yeah, I'm going to go Cody. I mean, he put on an all-time classic with his brother, and he's cut some really great promos.
Yeah, like I said, to me it's Ospreay going away, but I can see an argument for Cody. Kyle?
Cody is consistently the best part of AEW.
Yes.
And his angles. They just have the most thought and put into them, and they're the best. But no, I'm with you. It's Will Ospreay. Certainly the best in ring year. I just don't think Cody, who does carry himself like a star, I don't think he had a big enough star-making year to overcome Ospreay's in-ring year. I mean, this was one of the great in-ring years ever. And again, a lot of it is there's just so much wrestling now. Mm-hmm. And so much wrestling that's accessible now. I mean, God knows what Ric Flair was doing, random Fridays in Greensboro in '89 that we don't have footage of. But, I mean, to me, Will Ospreay is the correct choice here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
I was just going to throw out another name, so if you wanted to go on with Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're right. We did know Ospreay could have great matches. All you have to do is go back to that Best of the Super Juniors match with Ricochet 3.5 years ago, I think it was. But he has just been on a different level. I've seen very few wrestlers that have had so many great matches, especially like in a short period of time. We talked about this, Justin and I, when we were out the other night. And I said, there's so much WWE product, it's hard to just pick out the matches. And yes, there are a lot of great matches on WWE, but when I think of Will Ospreay's year, we were just sitting there at the bar and I just called them out. Like the events they were on, the month they were in, like they just really, really stand out. And you look at specifically the June and July that Will Ospreay had this year. I mean, just freaking insane. This guy has been at like 4 to 5 star matches pretty much all year. He had that match with Shingo on June 5th. That was 5 3/4 in the Observer. 4 days later, he had a match with Dragon Lee at Dominion, which was given 5 stars in the Observer. Then you fast forward about a month, July 18th, he had the match with Kota Ibushi, which was maybe my favorite match of his this year, that or Shingo probably. That was 5 stars. That was July 18th. 2 days later, he had that match with Okada. Both of these were G1 tournament matches. 5 3/4 stars. Man, I just can't think of anyone I've ever seen following wrestling that had that level of matches like that close together. And then you scroll up the list. I mean, 4 3/4, 4.5 stars, just like constantly, So.
I'm not using Meltzer's snowflakes.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with all those ratings, but it does show a trend that the guy has been at just a
you're right. No matter what you want to
level.
rate him, they were all very good. And the thing is too, he's always been a great wrestler, but he felt better this year.
Mm-hmm.
He felt better. Like he just feels like a guy who is in complete control of what he wants to do, and is just performing kind of at this peak level.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel like, how many times do you hear about a match? People are like, jizzing themselves over some match. Whatever, maybe you're not supposed to say that. Edit that out. But regardless, and it winds up, it's overrated. Like these Osprey matches, you'd watch them and you're like, no, that was really good. That was really freaking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't watch a lot of New Japan anymore either. Not as much as I did when Kenny was over there, the Bucks, for example. But all of those big-time Osprey matches I made a point to watch. And if you guys haven't seen them, they're readily available online. Or, of course, you can subscribe to New Japan World. But, man, this guy's just, yeah, that's where you can find them. But, yeah, what a year. Go ahead, Justin.
I am kind of pissed right now, Ryan. Friday night, I brought over for you to try some 18-year-old single malt scotch, and in return, you made me watch SmackDown instead of firing up New Japan World and showing me some of these Will Ospreay.
I was contractually obligated to cover SmackDown for comicbook.com. I didn't want to, but I had to do it.
Sometimes you got to break the rules.
I'll have you back, and we can watch some of these yet.
So the only other name I wanted to throw out there, and also because it goes back to best theme music, which would be in my top 3, is Walter. I think both in the ring, as a champion, theme music, Imperium, the group, all great stuff.
Yeah. Gabe in the chat room said, I'm torn between Bray Wyatt and Chris Jericho. He says, Bray is the only thing keeping my interest in the main roster. Chris Jericho continues to adapt and entertain. He's funny, a prick, and puts on a good match. I do agree Jericho's had a great year, at least from a character standpoint. He's been incredibly entertaining. And Bray was probably the most interesting thing the second half of the year on WWE. I think he's lost a ton of steam in recent weeks, though. But, from August through September and the early fall, there was nothing else interesting in WWE other than Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, although unfortunately we're kind of seeing the WWE TV effect with him.
Yep.
The more they sink their paws into something, kind of the worse it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, there's our picks for Men's Wrestler of the Year. 2 of us with Will Ospreay, 1 of us for Cody Rhodes. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up our categories that we had set for the night. I did want to kind of look at this from a podcast perspective, though, as well. And we look back at the year we've had here in 2019, I know that we have taken, the last month or so off, but overall, we put out a ton of content this year, whether it was on our regular feed here, on the podcast feeds, or over on Patreon, where we had several bonus shows. So those are fair game as well. I know only a portion of our listeners have heard them, but hey, they're Top Rope Nation episodes, Top Rope Nation classics. But do you guys have a favorite show that really stands out for you here from 2019? I'm scrolling down the list, looking at them here for me to see just how many podcasts we've produced in 2019, and it looks like on our main feed we've had 53 episodes. That includes some of the Patreon shows as well, so at least 53 episodes. Kyle, you said you knew yours right away. What is it?
The WrestleMania preview show.
Okay. Yes, that would.
By the way, just spoiler alert. We're recording this on a Monday night, and I just looked at Twitter, and I actually really want to watch the ending of Raw because my God, the feedback on this wedding angle is very divisive.
Wow.
I mean, as divisive as anything I've ever read.
Really?
Yes. I mean, there are people who are like, oh my God, I enjoyed that so much, and there are people saying it was the worst thing on Raw since Katie Vick.
That's a low bar.
Something tells me the answer will be somewhere in the middle.
Wow. So the one you mentioned, episode 91, back on April 4th, 2019. That is Kyle's favorite, the WrestleMania preview show, hour and 46 minutes. Justin, do you have a favorite?
I really enjoyed our Mount Rushmore of tag team specialists.
Yes, that one stands out for me too when I was thinking about it.
Ass man?
And our Top Rope Nation classics, I really liked it. In particular, you can listen if you sign up at patreon.com. I think the two best were Super Bowl 2 and the first Monday Nitro.
Yes, those are great shows. There's if you want to check out a preview of those on our main podcast feed, you can find like the first 10 to 15 minutes of them. And then, as Kyle mentioned, sign up at patreon.com/Top Rope Nation to hear the whole thing. Justin's Wrestling's Mount Rushmore of Tag Team Specialists. That was our 4th of July episode 105. Check that out on the archives. An hour and 16 minutes. A really good listen. We also had some fun guests this year. We had Chris Van Vliet, who's with AEW now. He was on the show early in the year. That was a fun show. We had Andrew Zarian from the Mat Men podcast. I had a lot of fun with that one. I had been wanting to get him on the show for a long, long time. I think I might have to go with episode 117 back from September 27th. That was our Mount Rushmore of Hell in a Cell matches. I thought that was a really good show as well. That was an hour and 27 minutes. So I think these are all really good choices. So guys, between now and next week, when you don't have any new content from us, if you haven't heard those, definitely worth checking out in the archives. I liked our History of Wrestling video games that we had with Okadrian from Twitch as well. That was episode 120 back on October 30th. That was also a really good listen as well. Gabe says, love that Sid Vicious episode. Yes.
Oh.
Late summer. Sid Vicious was supposed to be on I suppose I could reach out and still try to make that happen. But as we found out, all the stories about Sid Vicious and no showing WWE shows and getting fired for that and all that. Well, there is a vein of truth to that, because we had a hard time getting Sid Vicious on the podcast. In fact, there is a show that me and Kyle did. I can't remember which episode that is, but that night we were supposed to interview Sid, and we had him on the phone, and he couldn't do it. And so we put a show together just on the fly. We had nothing planned other than the Sid interview. We still have all those questions ready for him if we ever bring him on the podcast. But it's episode 111. Get out there and fill some time, August 16th.
Did you forget the scissors, Sid?
Oh, yes. Yeah, but it might still happen. Who knows? We'll see. I'll reach out to him. It's been a while. I do have Sid Vicious's number in my cell phone. Maybe I will send him a text tomorrow for New Year's Eve. We'll see. Okay, Kyle, I didn't really ask you in advance, but did you do a deep dive of the week for this week or no?
Yeah. So it's funny. I just saw your text that you texted me. The answer is yes.
Okay.
Actually, I was going to just bring a match up randomly. I totally forgot about the deep dive gimmick, but there's a match that I watched last night that I wanted to bring up, and it fits perfectly. So shame on me. It's been so long. I forgot that I always have to come up with a deep dive now. I've got one for you, though. It just sucks. So people were recommending this on Twitter. Decided to check it out. Don't think it's going to make anyone's match of the year contender list, but it's a very, very good TV match, and it involves someone who I think we all had his match with Walter among our match of the year contenders. Tyler Bate against Cassius Ohno from NXT UK from last month. I cannot remember the exact date, but it's in the description. I think it was like November 16th was the episode date. Really good match. Ohno is just so criminally underrated. What a beauty this guy is.
I have not seen that one either. I'll definitely be checking that out. Have you seen that one, Justin?
I have not.
I'm looking at his cage match listing here to see the exact date on the match. Let's see. This would have been, Walter and Ohno. I see they wrestled at Evolve in September. You said Walter, Cassius Ohno?
No, Ohno, Tyler Bate.
Oh, Ohno, Tyler Bate. Okay. Let's see. This was, NXT UK number 68, taped on October 5th. That sound right?
Yeah, but it aired in November.
Yeah,
I definitely
think
they
just like NXT used to do. They tape a lot together.
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
makes
but
sense.
it definitely aired in November I think it was 16th, maybe for some reason, the number, and that was in my head. But
broadcast date November 14th. There you go.
14th. Okay,
Yep.
So there you go. So yeah, it was really, really good, really well worked.
Yep.
Good big man, little man match.
All right, very nice. You guys have any big plans for New Year's Eve tomorrow night?
No.
I know we all have kids, so it's a different
I
world
know
these days.
it ruined it. My parents are like, they still want to go out on New Year's Eve, so they're kind of wouldn't. Last year we were lucky and stumbled into a sitter, but that's not going to happen this year. And with it being such a busy time of year for my work, I kind of relish actually not going out on New Year's Eve night.
Yeah, Mr. Joint.
I'll probably get a fire going in the fireplace, play some cards, and drink either scotch or wine.
Some of that fancy scotch you picked up over the holidays?
I think so.
Oh,
I think so. Only a little bit left.
Yeah. I might just binge a bunch of Kyle Ross's deep dives of the week from the last few months that I haven't checked out yet. Sounds like a good time to me. I don't have anything planned. It usually turns out to me in my basement watching TV these days. So, yeah, maybe drink a little bit of the bubbly, as Gabe says.
Oh.
There we go. Bringing it full circle. All right, guys. Well, hey, this is our Wrestling Awards of 2019. If you agree or disagree, send us an email, topropenation@gmail.com. We can read those on the air next week. Tweet us, of course, at topropenation. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment here and let us know. Of course, subscribe on YouTube and wherever podcasts are found. We're going to be doing these live streams of the show as we record them each and every week now moving forward. So if you don't want to miss it and you want to be in the chat room next week, make sure you head on over to youtube.com/topropenation. And we'll be here each and every week looking to grow the audience. And I did want to issue a challenge to our listeners. I talk a lot about leaving us ratings, leaving us reviews. All of that helps. But the easiest way, the best way for us to grow our audience is by word of mouth. If you guys recommend our show to someone that likes wrestling, they're going to trust you. I'd like to issue a challenge to every listener at Top Rope Nation to go ahead and recommend us to at least one of your friends over the next week. We'd like to see those downloads spike. Be great to get in front of some new ears and get some new people listening to Top Rope Nation, and especially joining us for these live feeds here on YouTube. All right, so with that said, I'd also like to throw a shout out to our producers. These are the patrons of the show. They do the most for us to help support the growth of Top Rope Nation. So thank you very much, and a happy new year to Derek, Gabe, Jake, Kyle, Tim, Liam, Ryan, and Sean. You guys help us so much with your support. We are very appreciative of that. We'll be putting out some new content for you exclusively at patreon.com/topropenation very soon. And with that said, what I wanted to do to ring in the new year is to throw it to one of my favorite musicians of all time, Mr. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, to play in 2020 for you. Enjoy.
41, 2. All right, guys. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!